President al-Assad stresses that what the Armenian people suffered from is being repeated in Syria. New Israeli airstrikes target Gaza Strip, leaving heavy material damage. Iraqi army liberates new areas in al-Ramadi, restoring control on a number of towns. Good afternoon. President Bashar al-Assad received this morning the Armenian Foreign Minister Eduard Nalbandian and the delegation accompanying him. During the meeting, discussions touched on the deep-rooted relations between Syria and Armenia, which are based on a civilizational and cultural heritage between the two friendly peoples and the necessity of consolidating them continuously in such a way as to fulfill the interest of both countries. The President spoke highly of Armenia's positive attitudes towards Syria during the current crisis, stressing that the Armenian government can play an important role during this dangerous period in the history of the whole region through conveying a correct picture to the Western countries about what is really happening on the ground, especially the danger of terrorism and Takfiri groups, which are supported militarily, financially, and ideologically by some regional and foreign sides. The President also stressed the necessity of combating terrorism and not just talking about it in public, while supporting it in secret. The President also stressed that what the Armenian people suffered from throughout its history is being repeated in Syria through causing the same suffering on the Syrian people by the same enemy. For his part, the Armenian Foreign Minister condemned the crimes committed by terrorists against the Syrian people, pointing out that the danger of terrorism targeting Syria and its essential role in the region may threaten other countries and even the whole world. During the joint press with Armenian Foreign Minister Eduard Nalbandian, Deputy Prime Minister, Foreign and Expatriates Minister Walid al-Muallim said his Armenian counterpart had held fruitful and constructive talks with President Bashar al-Assad. A round of talks was also held at the Foreign Ministry on various issues and bilateral relations between the two friendly countries. He added that viewpoints were identical over the topics discussed, as well as on the relations between the two countries and the priority of fighting terrorism in Syria. If the world community had not left the perpetrators of the Armenian massacre early last century unpunished, their grandchildren in Turkey could not have committed today the new massacres in Syria. The question is, what will the world community do about the new killers? In reply to a question about the statements of the Turkish regime's foreign minister on the presence of an initial agreement between Turkey and the US to present air support to the terrorists, al-Muallim said Turkey is committing acts of aggression in Syria which are much worse than this statement. It knows that the use of Syrian airspace by non-Syrian planes is an aggression, and consequently the Syrian Arab Republic is entitled to do all that it is in its power to repel such aggression. The good thing about this statement is that it is a Turkish confession of the intention to carry out an aggression on Syria. In reply to the French Sun, Mr. Muallim said, "We say to French Foreign Minister that he and his allies should stop conspiring against Syria. The Syrian people are capable of repelling such assaults and preventing any partition attempt." On the relations between Syria and some friendly countries, al-Muallim said, "I affirm that the relationship between Syria and the Russian Federation and Syria and the Islamic Republic of Iran is much deeper than what may be imagined, and both countries will not hesitate to support Syria in order to enhance its steadfastness." For his part, the Armenian Foreign Minister said that a strong international confrontation is needed to face terrorism in the Middle East, particularly Syria. "We are worried over the constant confrontations in Syria, the present crisis, and the catastrophes resulting from the terrorist operations in the country. Since the beginning of the crisis," Nalbandian said, "and through various international forums, we have been constantly raising the question of stopping the support rendered to terrorists, urging for an immediate immediate solution to the situation in the Middle East, particularly in Syria. We will continue to keep such questions within the major interests of the international community. Commenting on the visit, Nalbandian said his visit to Syria, particularly this year, has a special symbolic significance, as this year marks the centennial of the massacre committed by the Ottoman Empire against 1.5 million Armenians. Syrian Arab Army units have eliminated a number of Nusra terrorists, including a sniper in Al-Husseiniya and Khan al-Sheikh farms. Others were killed and wounded, and their weapons and ammunition destroyed south of Al-Kalak prison in Dar'a and west of Ataman. 30 Nusra terrorists were killed and their armored vehicles destroyed in the governorate's countryside. In Suwaida, the Syrian Arab Army inflicted heavy losses on ISIS terrorists and destroyed their weapons in Rajm al-Dawla. In Latakia's countryside, a terrorist mortar guns launcher was destroyed in Al-Aido village, Kansaba and Jabal al-Nuba. Syrian Arab Army units also destroyed the den of Nusra Front in Al-Maqala area north of Tel al-Mintar in the surrounding area of Jisr al-Shughur in Idlib countryside. The Iraqi army restored control on a number of areas in Anbar during the comprehensive military operation to liberate the province of ISIS terrorists. Units of the Iraqi army liberated areas in Al-Habbaniya and Al-Ramadi and to areas near Anbar University. A military source said that these strategic areas will prevent ISIS from smuggling weapons and ammunition. Iraqi warplanes launched attacks on ISIS dens south of Tikrit, killing 17 terrorists. Meanwhile, 17 Iraqi soldiers were killed following explosions by ISIS outside the city of Fallujah. The Saudi regime continued to target Yemeni women and children, launching new airstrikes against the capital Sana'a and other areas. Yemeni sources reported the killing of dozens of people during air raids on areas and military camps in Taz city, killing 6 members of one family. In Hadida city, Saudi warplanes targeted the medicine college and an airbase, a military camp, and an ancient castle, leaving heavy material damage. The Saudi border troops retreated 20 kilometers after being exposed to Yemeni mortar shells and rockets across the border. Israeli warplanes launched at dawn today new attacks on Gaza Strip, targeting several areas. The Israeli war jets fired missiles against Khan Yunis, leaving widespread material damages. The Israeli raids also targeted areas south of Khan Yunis, launching 4 missiles on Palestinian houses and properties. The Israeli occupation troops also shelled areas north of Beit Lahia in Gaza Strip. A sit-in of solidarity with the Syrian Arab Army and its sacrifices in defense of the homeland and its sovereignty was staged in front of Al-Fayha Athletes Club in Damascus, with the participation of hundreds of social, youth and civil society figures. The participants voiced support for the Syrian Arab Army in the war it is waging against the Takfiri terrorist organizations, which gathered from all over the world to commit crimes against the Syrian people and their history, heritage, culture, civilization and existence. They also hailed the heroes of the Syrian Arab Army who stood steadfast in Jisr al-Shughur hospital in Idlib countryside, expressing pride in the Syrian Army's victories and achievements. With this, we conclude our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Syria now, but after a short break.
Good afternoon. The meeting between Prime Minister Dr. Wael al-Halaqi and a member of Defense and Security Affairs Committee at the Russian Federation Council, Dmitry Sablin, has revolved on ways to enhance cooperation between Syria and Russia in economic, educational and technical fields in addition to oil projects. The two sides also discussed means of cooperation in transportation sector, developing the Syrian ports and expanding the airports, as well as reconstructing the rails and establishing a station for power generating. Dr. al-Halaqi said that the strategic alliance between the two countries and Russia's principal standing on Syria's side in international circles have contributed to consolidate the Syrian people's steadfastness. Al-Halaqi emphasized that Syria has been able to confront the most aggressive assault against it, thanks to the cohesion of its people, leadership and army, and the support of its friends. On his part, Sablin referred to the Russian people's keenness to offer full support for the Syrian people to enhance the factors of their steadfastness in the face of the unjust economic blockade. The Central Bank of Syria has set the exchange rate of the US dollar against the Syrian pound at 266.14 for the banks and 266.33 for the exchange companies. The Central Bank has also set the exchange rate of the US dollar against the Syrian pound for commercial and non-commercial purposes at 225.14. On the other hand, the euro exchange rate against the Syrian pound was set at 290.89 for the banks and 291.9 for the exchange companies. Crude oil rose about 1% today to recover some ground after steep drops in the previous session, boosted by expectations that the U.S. crude stocks could fall for a fourth straight week. European stocks advanced, snapping a three-day losing streak as Japan's Nikkei share average edged up in choppy trade today, extending its gains into a ninth day, but gains were limited after upbeat U.S. data fed fears that a rate hike may come earlier than expected. Gold held near a two-week decline today after sliding almost 2% in the previous session as upbeat U.S. economic data strengthened expectation that the Federal Reserve may be on course to raise interest rates this year. The euro and yen regained the foothold today after a week of falls that have pushed the dollar to its strongest in more than a month and revived faith in the U.S. currency's longer-term rally. With this, we conclude our economic news for today. Thank you for watching and goodbye.